Sis, now how long you gonna keep healing? How long you gonna be on that journey? So hear me out. It's the Brown Girl, created a Brown Girl experience, and this right here is Miseducation of a Brown Girl. This is a space that I created for Black women who are ready to unlearn, relearn, and remix the shit that we inherited about our Black womanhood. This space right here is for us to explore our dopeness safely, without judgment, and on our own terms. And we're going to do it all to a dope beat where our stories are in heavy rotation. So now that we got that out the way, now that you know who we are and what I'm doing here, can we have an honest conversation? Can we have an honest conversation where I'm probably gonna stir the pot a little bit and trigger some folks? And I'm gonna tell you why. I just feel like in 2026 that we're doing a lot. We're doing a lot and I love it, but sometimes I think we're trying to escape. You know, we have all this language around healing journeys, healing errors, boundaries, protecting your peace, choosing yourself, walking away, red pill, green pill, red flag, blue flag. We're doing all the things. You know, we're talking about therapy, inner work, child work, shadow work, everything. Now, don't get me wrong. Child, listen, do not get me wrong, because we need all of it. I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for any of it. But I think we need to ask ourselves a different question. What happens after healing? Yeah. You know, what happens when you've done enough healing and healing isn't asking you to protect yourself anymore? You know, what happens when healing is asking more from you than boundaries? You know, what if healing starts asking you to participate in your life again? Because honestly, in my personal opinion, and listen, I am not a therapist, nor am I pretending to be one, but I do think healing changes jobs at some point. You know, at first, healing is about protecting you and teaching you how to leave, how to say no, how to recognize unhealthy patterns, you know, how to stop abandoning yourself. But eventually, healing looks at you and be like, all right, brown girl, now go live. Yeah, and if I'm being honest with you, listen, and this is as somebody who has been told now go live, it's the scariest assignment of them all, because living requires a different kind of risk. Yeah, living requires presence. You know, living requires you to stop trying to protect future you long enough to let present you actually experience something. You know, and listen, some of y'all might remember when I made this declaration on TikTok a while ago, where I said that I was, well, it's also one of the reasons that I'm so incognito lately, but that's another story for another day. But the declaration that I made is, I said I was ready to date again. But this time I wanted to date differently. I didn't want to date, you know, the way that I did in the past. I wanted to date with intention, but I really wanted to date without fear. You know, and listen, a child, I was bold with my declaration. You know, I didn't just say I wanted to date again. I said that I wanted to fall in love again. I wanted to be open to love. I wanted to experience men instead of trying to predict them. I wanted to stop dating from a place of fear. I wanted to stop making today's decisions based off of tomorrow's potential heartbreak. Like, do y'all see where I'm going with this? Like, I wanted to be intentional. I wanted to use my voice. I wanted to say exactly what I was looking for. And I wanted to, I'll be honest with you, I wanted to be the girlie who nurtures somebody the way that they deserve to be nurtured. And then I wanted to be like, hey, yo, I want to be nurtured too. You know, I wanted to experience men for who they actually were instead of spending my energy trying to figure out whether or not they were going to hurt me. Yeah. Do y'all see how exhausting it was for me to date? You know, and me making that declaration. I know it sounds beautiful, it sounds bold, it sounds like, yo, sis, you doing that shit. Child, it sounds that way until life be like, bet. And here's the thing, because I have a past. I have a past. Y'all know my past. Y'all know about that man that I dated for 7 years and I loved with my whole entire being. He didn't even like me. Didn't even like me. You know, I told y'all about the situation shits, the almost, the people who didn't work out. And for a long time, I looked at all those relationships, each and every one of them, as the fucked up part of my story. Yeah. I looked at them as a fucked up part of my story and evidence that love would never find me, or maybe that I was never deserving of the love that everybody else gets to get. You know, I looked at every one of them that way. But now I look at them differently. Instead of looking at them as classes that I needed to take, because when I did a look back, every one of those men or those situations taught me something about me. One man taught me that I love being taken care of. I love being taken care of. And I don't mean in a financial way. I mean somebody saying that I have 10 things on my plate and they be like, yo, let me take these for you. And I love it when they don't ask, when they say, how can I help you? They just see it and they move. And I know some people are like, oh, that's like your love language is acts of service. And I'm like, maybe. But honestly, it feels deeper than that for me. And I think it's because I finally feel seen in the softest way possible. It's like he sees that I can do those things, but I don't have to. And he reminds me that I don't have to. And I love that for me. And honestly, I love that for any Black woman who is ready to receive it. You know, Another man taught me that I don't have to be on all the time. And when I tell you I was doing the most, child, I was wearing makeup just to sit in the fucking house. One day this man looked at me and he was like, you don't have to do all that. You're beautiful already. Now, in hindsight, when I really pay attention to it, in hindsight, his motivation wasn't my beauty. His motivation is probably because he didn't want any more makeup on his sheets and pillowcases. Yeah, or his white t-shirts. But because I was not using setting spray. That's another story for another day. But I still received that lesson all the same. I also realized that I don't have to perform femininity. Especially the version that the world keep trying to force down my throat. No, child, listen. I realize that I get to identify the femininity for me and what it looks like on me. And listen, some days it's bold as fuck. And when I tell you that some days my femininity looks like me sprinkling cuss words in each and every one of my sentences like glitter. But then other days it's so soft and pink that I nurture him in ways that reminds him that he is and always will be him. And when I say him, I mean the dopest version of a Black man that was ever created. Yeah. And I love that for me. And I offer all sides of that. I offer every version of myself as my femininity. And I refuse to deprive any parts of me. The part of me who be rocking the bonnet, who be bare face, bushy eyebrows, sometimes chin hairs, oversized t-shirts, all of them deserve love too. I deserve to be loved fully. And I'm bold enough to say it now. Another lesson that a man taught me is how important conversation is to me. Not small talk. Child, listen. Small talk in my non-spicy brain is the equivalent of being tortured in the pits of hell. Child, give me deep conversation. I'm talking about conversation that makes you lose track of time. The kind where you start talking about music, but then somehow, some way, you're living and talking about your childhood, or like me about that time that I thought I was being kidnapped, so I accidentally tased my ex at the dog park. I realized for me, conversation is intimacy. And I love that kind of intimacy. Another relationship that I was in, it taught me how important friendship is. Friendship for me has to be the foundation to any relationship that I have. And for me, honestly, it's simple. And it's because it's a different kind of love that grows from friendship. It's one that fights fair. It's one that respects each other differently. And my favorite part of a foundation of friendship, it helps you get through the hard times when you forget that you love each other or why you loved each other, you know? And that's dope. I didn't even realize how dope that was until just now. But another man taught me that I want somebody who wants to be in every part of my life, not just in certain small sections. I want them to be around my people, my friends, meet my family, see me in different settings, whether I'm on a panel speaking or on a stage at an open mic. I want them to see me scared. I want them to see me when I'm sitting on the couch eating cereal in a hoodie where I might have yesterday's funk on me still and be like, yo, I still fucks with her. I want them to be able to experience all of me and not just the curated parts that I have for the internet. Another lesson that I learned is curiosity. Child, I don't want somebody who's just attracted to me. I want somebody who is curious about me, curious about how I think, what I need, what makes me laugh, what makes me feel safe, curious about what brings me pleasure. That part. That part for sure. But for me, I'm not selfish in my curiosity. Like, I don't want it to start and stop with me. I want to be curious about somebody too. I want them to be able to have that thing that sparks the curiosity in me because listen, I want to know them so intimately. I want to know everything about them. And then I realize now I'm dating as an ADHD baddie, so I also learned that adventure matters to me, novelty matters to me, exploration matters to me. Those aren't just preferences, those are things that I need. They're things that I need to kind of keep me in the moment, keep me interested in things, keep that dopamine coming. And I discovered those things because now I'm willing to experience men differently. And one of the things that I finally did realize is none of those relationships or situationships, none of them failed. I didn't fail. Honestly, they all introduced me to myself differently. Yeah. And they helped me understand my needs and they gave me the courage to say that shit with my chest. Therapy helped a lot. Therapy helped a whole lot. It helped me find my triggers, helped me understand my past, gave me the tools that I needed in order to get out in this world and live. But dating was the test. Child, dating was a test. It helped me understand who I am in my present, where I'm still weak at, where I still need to do some work. And then once I learned that, life got funny. Life, she a tricky bitch because she got funny like that Jill Scott song. Y'all remember that song, Cross My Mind? Because listen, when I got to the point where I was ready to do all this thing, somebody from my past kept just popping up in my peripheral, like, from friends, from social media, and it sparked a certain kind of curiosity. It sparked the kind of curiosity that makes you want to pick up the phone and check on them, even though the last time you spoke to them, you smooth said that I don't want to be your friend, nigga. Like, and I may or may not have changed his name in my phone to don't answer, don't call, so he could join the sea of other men that I didn't want the side effects of ADHD to make me circle the block on them because I forgot that I hated them. Yeah, but I was curious. And curiosity did not kill his cat because I sent this man an email. Yes, an email. Yes, through Gmail. And guess what? He responded. And just like that, this man came back into my life after 13 years. And he taught me one of the most valuable lessons to date is that don't leave words unsaid. Unspoken words only breed regret and missed opportunity. And listen. Anybody who knows our story, who knows our history, will focus on that. Be like, sis, you should have never spun the block on that one. No, fuck him from now to infinity. But me, maybe it's the season I'm in. I'm fascinated because I'm thinking of how the woman that I was 13 years ago, hell, 2 years ago, she doesn't exist anymore. And so I was curious to see if the man that I met 13 years ago, if he existed. I mean, at this point, we all both should have lived, hopefully we loved or been loved. We both experienced, loss. We grieve people and lives that we thought we would have, and perhaps, they went to therapy the same way I went to therapy. And now they're familiar with their triggers. They know how to use their words, or maybe they're just genuinely a healthier version of themselves. Maybe they got humbled by life like I did. And learn lessons. And I'm talking about the lessons that only come from life dog walking your asses. And so I don't look at this as me spinning the block and everything like that or revisiting an old relationship. I actually look at this as two completely different people getting the opportunity to get to know each other for the first time. Again. Now, do I know where it's going to go? No. Not at all. Not one bit. But that's the beauty in it because for the first time in my life, I'm not trying to fast forward to the last page of the book. I'm not trying to know. I'm just here. I'm here in the present and I'm enjoying today. I'm enjoying learning him. I'm enjoying him naturally checking boxes that I didn't know I needed until those old relationships taught me what mattered. And now I acknowledge those things and I'm seeing now, wow, this Joker, he checking them boxes. And here's the biggest thing that I've learned. I'm not going to rob today's brown girl trying to protect tomorrow's brown girl. Yeah. Tomorrow will have a turn. But today deserves to be lived. And maybe that's what all I have to, maybe that's the lesson that I have to leave you guys with. Maybe that's the reflection that I have to leave you with, and if I had to give unsolicited advice, I would say maybe you're wondering if you could open up your heart one more time, whether it's in love, in friendships, life, or dreams, travel, whatever it is, do it. Take the risk. And I'm not telling you to ignore the past or the red flags or your non negotiables. No, sis, I ain't telling you none of that. I'm telling you to honor it. I'm telling you to look at everything that life has taught you. Look at the woman that life has built. Look at the wisdom that you carry now because you survived all of it. You survived all of it for a reason. And the reason isn't for you to spend the rest of your life preparing for pain. Child, no, that's not why we was created. You survived it all so that you could finally trust yourself enough to experience fucking joy. Maybe healing was never the final destination. Maybe healing was just preparing us to live. And if that's true, sis, go live that shit. And I'm going to leave this to the ladies who are scared to live again because I know what it's like to be scared to live again. I know what it's like to opt out of living and to protect the shit out of your peace and to be in silos, and I just want to tell you this, stop letting fear hold you hostage. Because when you take the risk, three things can happen for sure. You get a lesson. You get a funny ass story that you could share at brunch. Or you get the experience of a lifetime. That's all I got. I'm going to tell y'all, go do dope shit. It's the Brown Girl, created a Brown Girl experience. And this here was another episode of Miseducation of a Brown Girl. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.